Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this Methodologics quick take on the configuration of a basic rule in Replicator. My name is Mike Thurlow. I'm one of the support representatives for the Replicator product and worked with inside the rules area for well over a year now. Okay, what we're going to cover is we're going to cover the creation of a simple rule, the reasons why this is good for users with bandwidth issues, and this is bandwidth between your two SharePoint farms, and also a way in which you can protect your company data from a security point of view. In other words, stuff that you don't want to go from one location to another. One good place that you can find quite a bit of information with regards to the rules engine and what it's capable of is in the Methodologics Replicator reference guide. And to cut down on trying to search for it to find it, you'll find the information on page 60 onwards. And that will talk you through different ways in which you can configure the rules engines for your environments. So if you want to stop or move specific information to different locations. Also, you'll probably find some information inside our knowledge base article, and I've put the URL on the screen just so that you're aware of it. Once you go to that page, what you will need your license key to get in. Okay, so when you come to planning the rules that you're going to develop for your environment, you need to work out the kind of things you would like the rules engine to do. Do you want it to stop content from replicating? So this is where the security side of things can come into it. If you've got HR documentation that's stored inside your SharePoint farm, you may not want that to replicate out to another part of the corporate environment which has different HR policies in place. So you could stop this library from replicating from one location to another. This is also the case where if you've got sensitive management information that's also held within inside your SharePoint farm, you could also stop this from going over as well. This works well because it means that you can actually use this to police your environment as well. Because what you can do is you can set a rule that will actually skip documentation, and therefore means it doesn't go out the system. Or if somebody puts in something into the system on the target machine that comes over, the rule can take that information, place into the relevant library, send out a skip and delete command will actually remove the document from the side that it actually came from, and also stop it from going out to any other locations as well. So if you're working in a multi-replicator environment, it comes in from one location, it doesn't go out to any of the others. Also, what you can get Replicator Rules Engine to do is you can also get it to redirect your content to different locations. So if you have some documentation you only want to go out to one location, the rules engine is quite capable of doing this as well with some configuration settings. All of these are possible with inside the rules engine. It just takes a small amount of configuration and running through the setup guides, which will probably go over how to set up some of the more advanced ones in later quick takes. So what we're going to do in this demonstration of how to set up a basic rule is we've got a bidirectional configuration for Replicator, which means that I'm actually replicating data from source to target and back again without any rules at the moment. We're going to create a rule based on a column within inside a list, which means that you can actually set this column on any list or library, and Replicator Rules Engine will act against it. So you can actually set up a farm to begin with only having one list with this column in it. And as you grow your environment out, if you keep adding the column to that list, to any lists or libraries, the rules engine will automatically act on those ones as well. It doesn't mean you have to create a new rule each time you add a new library or list. What we'll do is now switch over to my machines. So these are my two virtual SharePoint farms. And what I've done ahead of this is I've actually created a list called Rules Demo. And this is the one that we're actually going to be working inside. So the column that I've determined that we're going to be working against is I created a column called Replicate. This is actually a single line column column, which means that you could actually write in the value. And the value we're going to be using is yes. Yes, I would like the item to replicate. At the moment, there's no rules in place, so anything added to this list will automatically be replicated to the other side unchallenged. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to place our rule. So we go to Central Administration for this. We then go to Manage Map Families. Make sure that we're on the right web app, so the one that we're interested in. And then if we go to View Maps on the right hand side. Then we're going to click on this tab here called Rules. This is where we're going to actually create the rule, because as you can see we have no rules set at the moment. So now we're going to add the rule to the map family. This means that any sites that are inheriting this map family will automatically receive this rule. So it means that if you have a hierarchy system which doesn't have any broken inheritance, any sites or subsites will receive the same rule against it. Okay. Okay, so what I've done is I've given the rule a title, and this is a basic means that anyone looking inside the map family and have a look at the rules will be able to clearly see what this rule is for and what is acting against. You can add a rule to any of these items here. So you could have it as a list name, list item column, content type, or folder path. For this one, we're going to use the column one. In the lower box, this is where you can actually set what you would like the rule to do. So would you like it to skip the item? Skip the item and delete it on the target. This is the one I was referring to, where you can actually get Replicator to police the system. So if somebody uploads something in a location where it shouldn't have been, Replicator will then take care of that for you and then remove it from where it came from, but leave it in the site it's supposed to be in. Change event classification means that you can actually change the priority of the packet. So if it's a packet that needs to go at a higher priority than everything else, you can actually change it to go to a priority 1, which means it will push it up the queue list. Redirect select connections. This is where you can actually redirect things to a particular connection, and you can do this by grouping connections through this GUI interface. And the next one down is by doing it through a lookup list. So it's where you'd have a list held within SharePoint, and then you could redirect things based on that information. And stop processing rules means that once it's met the first criteria in your rules, you could actually stop it at that point, and then no rules underneath that will then take place. It will literally just end at that point. So what we're going to do for this rule to begin with is we're going to actually do skip event. Okay, so this is where you can set which column it is that you're going to be working against. And the column name we're going to be going against is called Replicate. And you've got all of a few options here which you can pick from. The one that I'm going to be using is contains, and the phrase is yes, because we want the item to replicate. And then the action which is going to be taken care of by the rules engine is that it's going to skip the event. It means that it's not going to send the event to the target machine. Okay. Okay, so that event is now going to get replicated. So we're just going to monitor replication packages, and you'll see that the rule is now being updated to the map family, and that's being replicated to the other side. And that replication is now complete, so it means the rule is now in place. So now if I add an item onto here, Okay, so what I've done is I've added 3 items here, one saying yes, one saying no, and one being blank, because we know in some cases users don't always fill in the relevant information. Okay, so what we've seen is we've seen the packages now has been skipped. Skipped because the rule does this item need to be replicated has been triggered. It means that the item hasn't met the criteria. If I've got this correct, the only items that have gone over is no and blank. So I haven't quite got that rule correct. So if I go back into the rule, and change that to does not contain, so just quickly remove those items. Go back into the queue. When it does a delete, you'll notice that even if it doesn't meet the requirements, it will still send the package out to try and go and delete it as well. This is normal behavior. Okay, so that's all clear now. So if I now go to this side, all packages will be removed. All items will be removed. Now, if I run through this again, so what I'll see the 3 items go into the queue. So as you can see, one of them's got a blank, and that's because that one's met the rule. If the rule is triggered, this is why you'll see a blank in the worldwide connections, because it skipped the event. Okay, so as you can see, now when we go over to this side, we will still have 2 items because the rule has only been triggered on the no. It hasn't been triggered on the blank. So this will mean that we'd have to put in an additional rule to capture a blank, because we know that users, unless you force them to have an entry through manage metadata, so you can put in a forced entry, they will do blank. So it's always good to have a safeguard in there to ensure that you capture it if it's a blank. So what we'll do is and because we want this rule to be at the top, because we want this one to be acted on first, because if the column is blank, it doesn't need to go and try and find anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip the event, and we're also going to stop processing rules. Okay, so the replicate column is the one we selected, is blank. We're going to skip the event and then stop processing any rules underneath it, because we don't need to process any of the other ones. And finish. So as you can see, it has now changed the order. It's put the blank one at the top, and it's put the one that we were using a second ago into number 2. So we'll give that a moment just to replicate over. Okay. So now if I run through the same test, so if I now go into the monitor page, you'll see I now have one item that is currently working on, and the other 2 are going to be blank, which means the rule has now picked those up and is already completed. So if I now go onto this side, I will only have the yes and the no that we allowed through earlier on. So what I was saying earlier on was if you actually wanted Replicator to try and police the environment as well, is we can go into the map family and change one item on the rules, and then if it sees those, it will then remove the item from the target side. So we'll now go into this rule and change it from being skip to skip and delete. Next. Okay. I do the same thing for the other rule as well. So that's the first one done. Okay, so those are all done. What I'll do is I'll clear this packages list because then it will make it a bit easier to see what's about to happen. Okay, so if I now add an item, test 9, and leave that blank, okay, what we'll see now is that this has now been done on the target side, so I'm now sending back to the hub server. So we'll see that package come in. So there's the package coming in onto this side. So it's now going to start working on that package of adding it to the library. It's now added it to the library. Give it a couple of seconds. Now you'll see there's an outbound package, and this is the rules engine has now kicked in and started to process the information it's received. It's now skipped the event. Then there'll be another event that is now going out. And this one will be the delete event as per the rules requirement. So if I now go over onto this side and refresh, number 9 will now be gone. because the rules engine has determined that that item needs to be removed. And if I now go over to the hub server, or the server running the rules, number 9 still exists, but it now no longer exists on the target. So that's one way in which you can get Replicator to police the environment as well. Are there any questions on what we've seen today? No? Okay. Thank you very much for listening and viewing, and this recording will be going up into our knowledge base for future reference if required. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.